everyone. Hi. I'm Kate. Yes. And I'm from a small town on the Texas-Louisiana border. It's rural. It's really different from places like San Francisco. And I married someone who was rich. And I would always tell everyone, this is my husband. He's really rich. And he would say, Kate, that's not a nice thing to say about someone. I'd be like, I'm sorry. This is my husband. He's really entitled. You see, where I'm from in Texas, what we thought of as a rich person was someone who owned like a funeral home or a fence company. In fact, the son of the funeral home married the daughter of the fence company, and it was like the royal wedding. My family did not get the invite. And what we thought of as middle class, well, that was like a woman planting flowers in her yard in her old toilet, you know. She moved it to the front yard as a planter. That's fine ceramic. It don't seem right to take it to the dump. All it's seen is dumps. I'm going to give it some petunias, not petunias. And my single mom was always paying for things like donuts and boudin balls with quarters and loose change. A boudin ball is Cajun. It is dirty rice, deep fried. It's a delicacy where I'm from. And the other thing that's different about where I'm from is that we had all of these stray dogs. You know, it's super rural. And this one dog was my favorite because she would do a leap that just made her look totally pathetic. I was always embarrassed about not having enough money. And one day when my mom came home, I was like, you know, I went over to this small town rich person's house, and why can't we live in a home like that? And my mom said, well, honey, you know, their father has a good job, and her mom, all she does is clean house, and I could force you to make up your bed every day and spend your time, you know, cleaning up, but I would much rather you spend your time reading and playing outside than chasing what's pretty and perfect. And she would say, you know, if you want to be rich, you are so rich if you just use your heart and your mind and your imagination. Now, go read a book. And I'm like, but Mom, I don't want to be that kind of rich. I want to be real rich, you know, the kind that shows without having to open your mouth or a book. And I don't want to read a stupid book. And she would just say, you know, honey, I don't have time for this. Go to bed and get out of my face. And I told her, I actually heard you talking about our neighbor, Sheila. You said that she slept with a man for a new roof. She said, Catherine Abigail, I got to watch what I say around you. Don't you repeat that. And I said, well, you should know, if I grow up and I live in a house that has holes in the roof that we have to put pots and pans under during a storm, I would sleep with a man for a new roof. She said, sleep with a man for a new roof? You want me to be a prostitute? But I was raised in the church. So I, of course, said, Jesus' best friend was a prostitute. But Jesus couldn't save me that time. You know, I actually used to think that my calling in life was to be a youth minister, preaching the words of Jesus Christ as a vessel. But then I got a little older and realized I just like a captive audience. So thank you so much for being here, Martians. I always was like finding ways to hide being poor, because, you know, being poor was like watching your mom take a tin can of coins to the bank to have the teller turn the pennies, nickels, and dimes into dollar bills, only to have the teller count it all out and say, there's $24.33, but the bank has a policy that we can't give you cash from the coin counter when you're OD, overdrawn, and you're overdrawn. With this $24.33, you would still owe us 72 cents. She'd say, I could call the bank officer for special permission, but you see, it's a small town and my mom knows the bank officer. So then we would go to the grocery store and count the pennies, nickels, and dimes. And my mom would always say, Katie, just remember, pennies, nickels, and dimes, people will always take your money. It's like when I was in second grade, my mom was so proud about not going on free lunch food stamps. And so she would make my lunch every day. And one day I was like, Mom, you forgot to put my little Debbie snack in there. And she said, no, honey, I did. And the next day I said, there's no little Debbie snack in here. And she said, oh, well, I put it in there. And we realized when I switched class, a girl who's much poorer than me, who's on free lunch and doesn't get a little Debbie snack, was stealing mine. But instead of telling on her and getting her in trouble, we would let her steal mine in my lunchbox, and my mom would pack an extra one in my backpack for me. And in a way that's sharing and caring, you know? It's like, you know, working your way through college with 5 jobs and still taking out student loans. And one of those jobs is at a restaurant and your car broke down. You know you need to get it fixed. So you get someone to drop you off at work, and the first person you see of the day, you say, hi, welcome to Carrabba's Italian Grill. We are so happy to have you here tonight. And the person you're greeting says, you cannot honestly be that happy to be working here. And inside you're like, no, I'm not. I actually hate this job. And I hate rude people like you. If you really want to know, there's a manual, and the manual tells me exactly what to say and how to say it with a smile. But instead you just say, can I get you any appetizers or drinks to get started with? And when you go back to the kitchen to place their order, that skis-ball manager who gives special treatment to the people who flirt with them and go out with them, they make a pass at you, but you dodge them. You make it through your shift. You call up your mom, who cannot help you out with extra money, but who can listen to your problems. And you say, Mom, if only I would fuck my manager, my life would be so much better. And your mom says, oh, honey, I raised you better than that. If you are going to sleep your way to the top, do not sleep your way to the top of Carrabba's in Beaumont, Texas. And you're like, yeah. And she says, you know, you need to think big picture. I'm like, you mean like Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos? And she says, no, Outback Steakhouse. I want a bloomin' onion. I always used to judge people on how they dressed, because I assumed if they dressed better, they had more money and they could probably tip me better and they probably had a better life. It's why I once spent $1,000 on a handbag. Now, this handbag cost more than my rent, my car note, my cell phone bill, and all of my bills combined. It was a Louis Vuitton, a piece of canvas and leather sewn together in Italy. And I go to my mom's house and I say, Mom, what do you think? And she's like, you think you look cute? You look stupid. Honey, that handbag cost you more than any money you can put inside. Put that down, take off your shoes and socks, and come with me to the backyard. And I just know my mom doesn't get it, you know? But I put down the handbag and I follow my mom to the backyard. And when I see my mom's backyard, she has this garden that has no rhyme or reason. There's planting pots littered everywhere. And she just guides me to the green. And she says, lay down. I'm like, Mom, I don't want to. I'm wearing 7 for All Mankind designer jeans that I got on sale, but I do want to make my mom happy. And so like a thing my mom does is she lies in the grass. And once when I was in high school, my friend Nikki was dropping me off And my mom was lying in the grass in the front yard. And Nikki was like, is she okay? I said, yeah, she does this. She just lies in the grass. She's totally crazy. But I lay down and, you know, the white fluffy clouds float across the sky and the green leaves on the oak dance against the sky that's so blue. And I see a butterfly and a bumblebee and then a roseate spoonbill. And I realized that my pants have gotten muddy and I'm like, Mom, I ruined my pants. Now I have to change. And before I go inside, she says, Katie, just tell me one thing. Does that handbag make you feel this? And I'll never remember my answer. I have no idea what I said to her, but I will never forget her question, you know. The way that the handbag made me feel is obviously not the same, but the handbag was my emblem to everyone else to say, I have worth, I have money, you should treat me like someone who has money. And that's really all I wanted. And after college, I was still working at the restaurant, asking everyone, do you know a job that would let me travel? Do you know a job that would let me travel? Because I knew I had to get out of Southeast Texas. And my high school choir teacher says, you should meet Brad Melton. He's a former choir student of mine. He was going to go play baseball at Panola Junior College, but I said, you got the gift. And I got him a full scholarship to LSU for vocal performance. And then from LSU, he went to Yale, the Ivy League. Now, he is an opera singer, but his wife is one of the top 3 sopranos in the world, and they need a nanny. So I go over and I meet them, and he's like, come on in, Orange, Texas girl, you want a beer? I'm like, is this a test? And he says, no, I just got a new Amber Bock. So anyway, I hear you're good people from my hometown, and the job's real simple. You know, me and my wife just got the 1 kid. My mom raised 4 of us on her own, and you'll travel with my wife and the kid. I think she's going to Brussels, Amsterdam, Chicago, Puerto Rico. It pays. I was like, you better sign me up. And then the next thing I know, I am traveling the world with this 2-year-old, and then he's a 3-year-old, and then he's a 4-year-old, but we are seeing everything wide-eyed and new for the first time. And in each of these cities, I date like a maniac, you know, just to meet someone older than 4. Online dates, and I get it down to a perfect art form. So you always meet the dates in an open space, you know, that way if you don't like them, you can just leave. You don't even have to be sitting with coffee. And the week I arrive in Washington, D.C., where the opera diva is performing the role of Cho-Cho-san in Madame Butterfly with Placido Domingo conducting, I meet Josh. He's a 2nd-year law student. Our plan to walk the National Mall turns into a 7-hour date, and it's cold, and he has on these fingerless gloves, and I'm like, what's up with the gloves? And he says, oh, I live in an old auto body shop, and it's so cold inside that I have to wear gloves inside to text, and I cut the fingers out of these so that I could text inside. I'm like, okay, well, I got these gloves from Marshall's, $10, right? And they have technology in the fingers that lets you text. It's worth the splurge. I'm thinking, here's this poor law student. He can't even afford heat. But the first time I see his apartment, okay, it is huge. Brick walls, double height ceilings, beautiful hardwood floors. It looks like the home of a grown-up. It looks like no college student I had ever seen. The furniture doesn't match, but it doesn't match in that, like, you know, design within reach kind of way. And we keep going out, spending our every spare minute together. A couple of weeks later, on Valentine's Day, he brings me flowers, and I'm like, wow, they're beautiful. And we go to see plays, and he takes me to his law school cabaret, which was truly the worst theater I've ever seen in my life. And eventually I crashed at his apartment. And when I go there, it's almost like a little too perfect. I almost run out of there, but I crash. And in the morning when I wake up, it's the smell of bacon. And I follow the scent to the kitchen and see him standing there cooking all of this delicious fatty pork like the bad Jew he is. And then he says the words I have been dreaming of a man to ask me my entire life. Do you want your eggs fried in bacon fat? Yes. I don't believe in cholesterol. Me either. I have finally found someone who agrees with me on the most important things in my life. And then he says, you know, I'm falling in love with you. You should move to DC. I'm like, I love you too, but move to DC? I can't move to DC. I have a good job. I'm the opera nanny. We're going to Santa Fe in 2 months, actually. So the next time I see him, he gives me a necklace with silver and turquoise. It sounds hideous, but it was from Barney's, RIP. And that card says, in case you don't make it to Santa Fe. I was like, this is a lot, but I'm definitely going to Santa Fe. And then he comes over again with flowers, and that card reads, don't go far off, not even for a day, because I don't know how to say it, a day is long. I'm like, it's so sweet. I found out later it was Neruda, but still, I was like, I can't move in with you, If I did move in with you, my whole family in Texas would have to meet you. He's like, okay, let's go today. Let's go tomorrow. Let's go whenever you want. I'm like, what? And he said, look, Kate, people in my life, we don't care about things like jobs or money. Money is not important. You're so caught up on money. We can go whenever you want. My dad actually sold his company for 8 figures. And I'm really bad at math. So I'm like, 8 figures. In my head, all I see is figure skaters, 8 of them. And they're like twirling around and around and around. And I have no idea how much money would be enough money for a girl like me to not even worry about money. But 8 figures sounds like it could be enough, And he says, we'll get to go where we want and do where we want, and you'll find meaningful work, but I got the rest covered. And one part of me is looking at this man and thinking, this isn't right. You've been working since you were a kid. You've been traveling the world, yes, but you've been traveling the world working. You need to stand on your own 2 feet. Don't get your head in the clouds. But then another part of me looks at this amazing man and this amazing apartment and thinks, I live here now. And the next thing I know, I'm on a plane to Texas with my boyfriend next to me. And I'm nervous because, my house is not like his. And my mom, and like, how do I explain my brother? And I remember, I don't know how long I've got. I think I'm done. Am I done, Stephanie? Who's stopping me? Is that where I'll stop? I'll stop. Okay.
I think you should finish up.
Okay. So I'll finish up. I've got a few more minutes. So I'm on the plane and I'm like, what am I going to say about my mom and my brother? And so the thing about having a single mom and a big brother, for me meant my mom would usually be working late. And so she would have my big brother watch me. And with my brother Logan watching me, that meant he would be smoking weed and drinking with his friends in the backyard. And I would usually be in my room, like working on my dance routines. Woo! And I had a rule, like I didn't want my brother's friends in my room because it was my room. And one day someone knocks at the door and I look and it's Daisy Vance. Now, usually I don't like my brother's friends in my room, but Daisy Vance is this beautiful teenage angel with bad teeth, okay? Her name is known in like 3 school districts because she's so beautiful, and also because, and now this is horrible, but because she was a slut. Okay, now I would never say that. I'm against slut shaming. And I found out later her mom kicked her out of her house when she was like 12 and she'd been living with boyfriends. But she comes over, she's in my room, and she's beautiful. And my room has like some rotten floorboards and the furniture doesn't match. And I tried to do this sponge paint design effect on the walls, but it did not turn out like HGTV. And I'm about to hold up an old Southern Living and say, I wish my room looked like this, but she is looking around at everything and her eyes are so blue, like a Precious Moments doll. And she just goes, wow, it is like so cool. You got your own room. And she is genuine, open, high as fuck. But I know that she means it. You know, for whatever reason, she has never had a room that was just her own, that she could fill with things that she loves. And maybe she could only love people. But all I knew was that I didn't need to apologize to Josh or anyone else for my home not being perfect.